Hi, everybody. Hugh here again. So, we're doing part three of my first day in prison. This is writing I did, is kind of raw and unedited since I got out back in 2011. So, if you haven't checked out parts one and two, I recommend doing that. And as well, please, if you enjoy this, I really appreciate your subscribing to the channel. Really helps me out a lot. It's free for you to do, and so really appreciate it. So we're going to get back onto it. Just been sent to the hole like a lot of inmates do at the beginning. We've been told we're going to be there for about a week. I'd had a lot to drink the night before I went into prison and had a breakfast of biscuits and gravy at a diner there in Leavenworth. And in this, like I've changed a lot of names, including the name of the prison to Lincolnwood, Wyoming, from Leavenworth, Kansas. So I just christened our tiny little cell that I'm sharing with a guy for a week at least in the hole. Um, and I kind of barely made it. So that just happened. So check out parts one and two. Anyhow, moving on. Among the clouds in the cell was one of tension, and Ralph broke the awkwardness. I wonder if we are allowed a phone call. Yeah, I don't know, Ralph. I'd love to let my fiancée know that I'm all right. I bet she's worried by now. A guard stopped at the cell and opened the slot in the door. He shoved in 2 rolls of toilet paper, toothbrushes with the ends sawed off, tooth powder, socks, soap, underwear, towels, and 2 thin blankets. The socks and underwear were pink, and I suspected they had been washed along with some red garments at some point. Knowledge gleaned by trial and error. That one's certainly an error that Michelle never liked to let me forget. I learned later that the pink clothes were issued to degrade and emasculate the prisoners. Pardon me, sir, Ralph said to the guard. I wondered if I might place a telephone call. We both just got here. You can make a call in a month. The guard stormed off. Ralph stared out the cell door at the empty hallway for a second, then turned back to me, still on the throne. That settles that, I guess. He handed me a roll of toilet paper, then pretended to examine the nasty shower. Ew. I finished my business quickly and hopped up, then flushed the jet-powered toilet. Fortunately, the room had a small window, eye level with the grass outside. I looked out to see a bunch of guys in khaki uniforms out on the lawn. I pointed. I guess those guys are prisoners. Yeah, I guess so. There was a light in the cell, but we couldn't turn it on or off. A draft blew through the cracks in the concrete, and I read some scribbling on the wall. A lot of the scrawling said rest in peace and some nickname, along with what I assumed were birth and death dates. Lots of the years represented guys who would have died in the early 20s. Tooth powder. Ralph held a small bottle of white powder and shook it. He removed the cap and took a whiff. It says you can carry it on planes. I guess that would be handy. A world of flying machines seemed like a galaxy away at that point. I scraped my fingernail on the concrete wall next to the scribbled names. It didn't chip away like Andy's cell in the Shawshank Redemption. We'd need a bigger rock hammer than he had. Ridiculous thoughts. It all still seemed like a movie. I found a science fiction book beneath my mattress, and Ralph found some notebook paper, half a pencil. I started reading the back cover, and Ralph cut up the paper to build a set of cards. You up for some poker? Rummy? He asked. Not really. I've never been much of a gambler. It's not like we have anything to gamble anyway. I've just never been into cards myself. Ralph shrugged and dealt himself a few hands of solitaire. I heard someone pushing a cart down the hallway, and every other second the noise stopped. We heard the clanging of the slots and the doors opening, so we assumed we were about to have our first prison meal. The guard stopped in front of our cell, and I hopped up to grab the 2 square plastic trays. As I handed one to Ralph, I said, Is this what they mean by a square meal? Ralph kindly laughed at my feeble joke. We ate chicken and beans. Flavorless, it still gave Ralph some awful indigestion, so we mixed some of the tooth powder with water and gulped it down because it was mostly baking soda and sugar. So what did they charge you with? He asked. Mail fraud. I gave him the ambiguous and stream of consciousness version that danced wildly around reality, and when I was finished, Ralph was convinced I was the victim of a cruel system. So now it's a crime when your business fails, he said. Figures, I reciprocated. Ralph went into the details about the real estate business, the mortgages, the housing bubble, equities, appraisals, leverage, collateral, the credit rating, and a great many things with familiar terms, but I hadn't the foggiest notion of what any of it meant. I just nodded and said things like, "Oh, it goes without saying," and "as would be expected." I continued his rant for him. What it comes down to is the fact that if they want to nail you, you better believe they are going to nail you, my friend, because that's what they do. You're darn tootin' it is. Damn right. And the real crooks are out there in the world, sitting in their ginormous offices, behind their fancy desks, laughing all the way to the bank, drinking coffee and smoking big cigars. And we're the ones in here. You said it, compadre. And they got the politicians' hands in their pockets. The corrupt politicians, the dirty politicians, but that's pretty much all of them. Ha ha ha! I mean, pretty redundant statement there, wouldn't you say? Ha ha! You nailed it, pal. Ha ha! And another thing, we carried on for a while, passionately spouting the same tired drivel that guys like us are expected to spout in our situation. The ice, though, was broken between Ralph Romero and me. We were kindred spirits, brothers in arms unjustly imprisoned by our own countrymen. Most importantly, we felt no shame in crapping next to each other's head for the next 7 days. At some point, the conversation turned to more personal subjects. So you have a fiance, you said? Yeah, Crystal. We plan to get married when I get out. She was practically living at my house. She's an artist and just beautiful. We sat on the steel rim next to his bed as we spoke. Ralph stared at the concrete wall 2 feet in front of him, but smiled as if he could see far past it, years into their glorious future. An artist. Very cool. Yeah, a lot of people don't understand what it takes to maintain as a dancer, but she puts in the work, the sweat, and the tears. Blood sometimes, even. Excuse me. Dancing. Nice. Not sure what to say. And it's not just about the artificial and the extras, but an appreciation of the natural beauty of the female form in its most natural state. Ralph spoke as though he was still trying to spin it in his own mind. The subject was almost regrettable to mention. And she's fully aware of what a struggle it is. Crystal has the Facebook account for her fans and the subscription website with the webcam. Sometimes she does private shows outside the club, and sometimes she'll do other stuff, but only if the price is right. Ralph's tone turned despondent. You see, some guys will pay a lot to spend some quality time with a quality woman. She's an artist, and artists have their vices. I nodded slowly, hanging on to every word, wondering if I was hearing him correctly. Hers just happens to be crack cocaine. Huh. There is a stigma in our society about women who sleep with strangers to support a deadly drug addiction, and Ralph was aware of it. We'd officially returned to an awkward place. You just can't help who you fall in love with, he said, staring down at the fat and folded fingers resting in his orange lap. No, sir, you sure can't. In the hole, Ralph and I grew accustomed to simple conversations. It was on the first day of November that I said, "Today is my birthday." It is? He was sharpening his pencil with his teeth. Yes, it is. Well, happy birthday then. Thanks. We spent our days mostly horizontal, stacked on top of each other in our steel bunk beds. Sometimes we stood up for entertainment, or stared out the window, trying to guess what time it was. Discussions of crime and punishment grew tiresome and silly right away. We spoke of monotony and boredom until the irony wore us out. With the pencil and the leftover paper, I wrote about our predicament in cryptic and florid prose. Time stopped everywhere around us, and I witnessed an alien eternity in the ceaselessness, as linear qualities of the everlasting halted all reason and progress, wonder and achievement, art and invention. Unborn babies kicked and fussed, then grew as industrious men, the prodigal sons of science, who built the angry, growly machines, roaming dark landscapes, grinding and enslaving through infinite millennia, blasting away the clues and remnants of mankind's final footprints, the galaxy hiccuping, collapsing into cold black absence, twice reborn in fiery squeals. Wow, Ralph said, applauding. Pretty heavy stuff there. Did you do much writing back in the world? Not really. I was thinking I might do some more while I was here. Maybe a way to kill time. Sure, buddy, sure. I used to drink coffee like a fiend, and I suffered some intense withdrawal headaches for a couple of days. Combined with a lack of nicotine, my body was in a revolt, causing me some irregularities. We both stayed rather constipated, considering our minimal activities. All right. I'll do a part 4, I guess, here in a minute. So, appreciate y'all.